So far we've discussed creating accessible PDFs that the end user only needs to read. Interactive PDFs can also be created that allow the end user to enter text directly into form fields on the PDF. In the ever-expanding digital world, surveys, short assignments, and even quizzes are often created this way. If the interactive PDF is created properly, users, including those with disabilities, should be able to enter text directly into the PDF and turn it in. If it's not created properly and accessibly, users will have to print out the PDF, fill it in, and then turn it in, which can be a real problem for students with disabilities. To create an accessible interactive PDF, we need to follow the steps for creating an accessible PDF that were laid out in the previous video, and then follow a few additional steps, which we'll talk about in this video. To do this, you're also going to need that professional version of Adobe Acrobat that we discussed before. All right, let's take a look at those additional steps that we need to follow to create an accessible interactive PDF. This is an example of a PDF that was used last winter at the University of Iowa. And to make this interactive, what you need to do first is you need to start the form wizard. So to start the form wizard, you're going to go up to click Forms and then Start Form Wizard. When we do that, what this is going to do is it's going to ask for what type of document we're going to use. If we're going to use the document that we already have in place, we'll just leave it on an existing electronic document and click Next. And then if we want to use the current document, we're going to leave that as selecting Use the Current Document. We're going to hit Next again. What this will do then is it's going to run through and it's going to show you that it added forms to our document. It only adds forms where it finds basically blank lines. So it's going to add text box forms, and we're going to see that sometimes it might add forms that you don't want, interactive forms you don't want. I tried to add this underlined portion here to see if it would throw a form on there, but it did not. So just to show you what you would do if you found an unnecessary form on here, because that's the next step once this adds the forms. Anything that we find that's unnecessary, we want to get rid of. So to get rid of it, we'd left click on it, then we'd right click, and we would choose Delete. And by doing that, we get rid of the unnecessary form fields that do show up. But what we've got now is we've got form fields in some of the areas where we would like to have people be able to interact with this document. What we don't have is form fields in other areas. What we would like here is we would like these to be radio buttons where you can choose one or the other, and we'd like this to be a checkbox where you could choose as many as you want. But as you can see, the form wizard did not add those pieces directly into this. We can add our own interactive components to this, and to do that, we go over here to Add New Field. When we click on Add New Field, it gives us a drop-down menu, and it gives us a list of things that we can choose from. And I want to add a text field back into Work Telephone there. So I'm going to click Text Field, and I will take my box. You can see the cursor becomes what you want to add, and we can take it and we can place it right there. And then this is asking for a name. We'll call it Work Telephone again. Now let's look at, we want to add radio buttons here. So we can go back up to Add New Field. We can choose a radio button, and we can drop that right here next to Yes. I'm not going to name this one just yet, but if I want to copy it and add another one, I can right click on it. I can copy it, and I can hit Paste, right click and hit Paste. That'll give me another radio button that I can then drag and put here next to No. So we've got our two radio buttons there. Now to add checkboxes, we're going to go back up to Add New Field, and we'll select a checkbox. I'm going to come down here and I'll drop this right next to our checkbox. Now, I'm not going to add any more now. You'll see in the finished product what adding more of them look like. But we've added the buttons that we need. Now what we need to do is we need to make them accessible. Just by adding them doesn't make them accessible. We need to give them a little more information for the screen reader as it goes through and reads it. And that extra information that we give it is actually telling the user what to enter into the document. So we're going to go up here first to Name. We're going to right click on Name and we're going to hit Properties. Properties is going to show us in the General tab. It's going to give us the name, so we're going to name that box Name, and then it's going to give us a tooltip. What we do with that tooltip is we write in what we want the user to do. So what we're going to write is enter your name. So what this will do then when we have a screen reader is it'll go through and read this, and when it gets to that field, it'll say enter your name. It'll tell the user to do that. So we'll hit close. That's how you make a text box accessible. Now to make a radio button accessible, you're going to go and right click on the button, and you're going to hit properties. And then we're going to leave tooltip. We'll leave the name as radio button. And for the tooltip here, since this is a yes or no question, we're going to actually ask the question. In this case, did you have the H1N1 virus? And so now what this will do is when it gets to that part, it'll ask, did you have the H1N1 virus? And then it'll say yes. If we did say yes, we'll enter it there. If not, we'll say no when it gets to the next one. To finalize making this accessible, we need to click on Options, and we need to give the button a value. In this case, we'll give that button value yes. We'll leave it as yes because we want that to be yes. So it'll read yes as the button value, and then we'll close. If we go to no, we right-click on no, we hit Properties. If we go back here to General, we will see it ask the same question. It filled that in for us. Did you have the H1N1 virus? What we want to change is back under the Options menu, we want to change this button value to no. And now we have an accessible set of radio buttons there. It'll ask you the question and then it'll tell you the options. You can choose the button that you want. So then to make a checkbox accessible, what we want to do is something similar but not quite the same. We want to go and right-click checkbox, hit Properties, and in our tooltip here, what we want to say is I had a stomach ache. And then hit close. What this will do is this will prompt the user to check that if they had a stomach ache. For our buttons for fever, cough, and sore throat, we would also write here, I had a fever as the tooltip, I had a cough as that tooltip, or I had a sore throat as that tooltip. That will prompt the user to enter into the checkbox. So at this point, we've filled in what we want to fill in here. We've made this an interactive form. We can go and finish this off by hitting Close Form Editing up at the top. When we check Close Form Editing, it sets up a nice interactive form that we can then go through and we can work with. Now, there's one last thing we need to do to make this accessible. To make this accessible, we need to come over here and we need to click the Pages button. We need to select our page. We need to click Options. We need to go hit Page Properties. We need to set the tab order. By setting the tab order, it gives us a structure that the screen reader user can follow. Right now it's unspecified, so nothing will happen there. What we need to do is we need to go and click Use Document Structure, and we need to click OK. At this point, we should then have a document that if we run an accessibility full check, should pass with flying colors by telling us that there are no problems. And we found that, yes, there are no problems here. And at this point, we can also go and interact with the document. We can put our name in. We can type things into our text boxes. We can choose options on our radio button, and we can click different options on our check boxes. So at that point, we should have an accessible interactive PDF. Those are the 6 easy steps to make your interactive PDFs accessible to all.